Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness. And for those of you who don't know, I recently got married. Yay! It was a wonderful, beautiful day. And it was magical in so many different ways. So many friends and family came from far away just to be with us for our special day. It was amazing. So, my question to you, everyone, is now that my last name isn't Meyer anymore, do I switch everything over to my married name? I would love for you guys to reach out and let me know what your thoughts are because my husband's totally cool with me keeping my maiden name for business. Anyway, enough about that. I'm really excited about our guest today, Dr. Annie Savage. She is an amazing person. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time, and she lives in one of my most favorite places in the world. So without further ado, let's bring her on to the show. Welcome, Annie. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
So
Congratulations.
good. Thank you so much. And, I mentioned that you live in one of my favorite places. Let's start there. Where are you? Tell us a bit about you.
I'm in Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. So it's very beautiful, nice and sunny today. It's been a great summer so far. Usually our June is quite rainy, but we got lucky this year.
That's funny because I'm looking out my window. I live in Southern California and it is overcast and unpleasant. So I'm like, what happened? Usually it
We
should be off.
traded.
I know, what is this business? But anyway, I would love for you to share a bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Of course. So I'm a naturopathic doctor. I have a physical practice here in Vancouver. It's downtown. And then an online business with online programs so that I can work with women all over the world. I'm actually from the middle of Canada, Saskatchewan. So it's more of a small town. And I just ended up out in Vancouver with my business partner, whom I actually met in med school in Arizona. So it's been kind of in full circle. We were both Canadians down there. So that's probably why we became best friends, two Canadians in Arizona. And how I got to be a naturopathic doctor was through my own kind of health journey, which I think for most NDs, even most just medical practitioners, they may end up there from their own health journey. And that is definitely my story. I wanted to be a doctor since I was very young. I'm not sure where that came from. I was just kind of born nerdy and loved science and nutrition, and I would like dissect the organs when my parents would make turkey and chicken. They pull out all the organs. I would look at that and dissect it. I guess I was very interested in anatomy. But growing up, I was getting chronic migraines, so they were typically related to my hormones within my cycle, and I had horrendous period pains. Um, I would lay in the dark when I had these migraines. I would lay in the fetal position when I had my period because the pain was just so severe. At the time, I was never given really any answers, any questions like, why is this happening? I was really just offered medication over and over again. So I think that kind of aspect within our conventional system sent me away from it. I didn't feel really cared for, listened to. And my question, my intuitive thought was always, well, why does this happen? I know you can stop it with a medication, but shouldn't we understand why this is occurring in my body? So I just went down a path of research. So I went into nutrition, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, like every other type, just to try to learn other modalities, other thought processes within the human body. And that's actually how I discovered naturopathic medicine. So I didn't know it existed prior to that. I didn't grow up in a household that was like that. I grew up in a very conventional type of household. But as soon as I discovered naturopathic medicine, I was like, wow, this is it. This is the blend of art and science, Eastern and Western medicine. And I just thought it was amazing. It looks at the body as a whole, trying to find the root cause of really what's going on. So that was the very first step in my own journey, my own healing. When I found naturopathic medicine, discovered what it was, I had already finished my undergrad degree, which was in biology and nutrition, because I did plan on going to regular conventional medical school. But when I finished that degree, I was like, I don't think that's the right choice. I don't feel good in that system, or thus far, at least in that system. So that's part of the research. I got very lucky. I found naturopathic medicine. It was that light bulb moment for me. And I started to work with an ND. At the time, I was living in Calgary, Alberta, and I became her receptionist, her office assistant, really did whatever she needed. And she had said to me, because I was still getting these migraines at this time, I was around 2021, and she just said, "Oh, are you taking birth control?" And I was at the time. I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, okay, your B vitamins might be depleted, so take a B complex and you just take this daily, it'll replace it." And I just stopped getting the migraines immediately. So it was very interesting to me, such a simple thing that we all, or not we all, medical doctors, health practitioners would know that the birth control pill does deplete some of our vitamins and can lead to other side effects, but no one had mentioned it or talked about it. And it was a very simple replacement for me. And then I went off to school. I rarely get migraines now, thankfully. And during school, when I learned everything else that I now know, I was able to really help myself, heal myself. And now I too get to have these perfect kind of pain-free periods that are very regular and completely different from my experience prior to that. I got my period at, I think, 13 or 14. And like I said, they were just horrible. They were so painful. I was getting those migraines as well, the bloating, and then acne with it, the mood changes, kind of like the picture that most women associate with a period is what I was experiencing as well. But now I'm on the other side of that, and I help women to balance their hormones, heal their digestion, so they don't have to experience that at all. So that's been the last 6 years I've been in practice, and I've taken it online in the last 3. So I'm really just trying to get that message out to all women, because so many women that I speak to are still like, well, I have the right, the normal symptoms, but everybody has that. That's normal. That's being a woman. That's having your period. And it isn't. It just isn't at all. And
Mhm.
it's frustrating. It's really sad that so many of our women out there are feeling like that. And it affects their life, their work, their relationships, just, every aspect. So that's really my passion to talk about.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because, I know that when you and I spoke privately, we were talking about how these symptoms are common, but it doesn't make them normal. And, I love this idea too of figuring out what and why it's happening versus doing the whack-a-mole approach where you hit a symptom and then something else pops up because you take a pill for that. So
Totally. It's
yeah, why not go to the root, because it could be something really simple that won't require all this extra stuff and create other issues for yourself. That's amazing.
exactly. And we're doing a disservice to ourselves with the way that our medical system is set up, because especially here in Canada, you get about 5 to 7 minutes with your medical doctor. So you go to your
Mhm,
family doctor with, whatever your concern is. Most people have more than one concern though. In
mhm.
that 5 to 7 minute span, they're typically limited to one symptom or one concern. So you're allowed to say, "Oh, I'm getting headaches," and then your doctor will maybe ask you some questions about that, prescribe something, see what they can do. But when you only have that 7 minutes, we'll say, and you've got a laundry list of symptoms, say you come in, you've got 10 that you want to talk about, it's really a disservice to everybody, because that doctor doesn't have the time to go through all the symptoms and see the connection, see what could be the root cause, even if they wanted to. They're really given the time for one symptom, and then exactly as you're saying, we're symptom chasing, which the symptom is the end result, not the beginning point. So it's
Mhm,
a little bit backwards, um, but that's the way it's set up. It's really not the physician's fault. It's really the system that's in
mhm.
place that's kind of getting us stuck.
And I always highlight this whenever, because this is a wellness show, and tend to put down Western medicine a little bit. And it has nothing to necessarily do with the doctors, because I don't know any doctor that would go to school for that long and spend that much money if they didn't want to help people. That part's
Exactly.
not the question. Like you said, it's the system that's set up that creates this issue of 5 to 7 minutes and on to the next. How are you really going to know that maybe that headache really has something to do with something completely different? And my sister-in-law recently passed away because she was misdiagnosed. And it could have been completely avoided if somebody had spent a little more time with her. So,
Absolutely. I'm sorry to hear that. That
yeah.
seems to be sadly a kind of a common story, that things are caught way too late or just missed entirely.
Mhm.
But yeah, as we're saying, it's really system related. I don't think it's personal. I don't think anybody, like you said, would go to school for that long if they didn't care, if they didn't want to
Mhm.
help people. It's just the way everything has ended up in the way we run things in our society that's made it a little more tough.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love what you do, because it takes into account the entire human, and also Eastern and Western medicine. So it's not one or the other. It's everything, so that you can get a bigger picture. Because for me, and I say this kind of often, but I don't care. Eastern medicine's been around way longer than Western medicine. Why are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Why don't we just, why are we
I
giving that
agree.
up?
And that even goes into like herbal medicine, botanical medicine, food as
Mhm,
medicine. It's often ignored. It's often like, oh,
mhm,
those are old wives' tales. We don't do that anymore. Because someone hasn't done a scientific study to prove that it's okay. But it worked for
mhm,
hundreds of thousands of years before we discovered antibiotics, for example.
mhm,
And we've also kind of done that where we've shifted into this space of show me scientific proof, show me scientific evidence. If there's not that, I don't believe it, I don't agree with it. And I actually get that a lot, in comments on my TikTok sometimes, is specifically with this, with women saying, show me scientific evidence that I shouldn't be in pain. And I just think, holy man, like you truly believe that since you're a woman and your body has, a hormonal cycle, we get our period every month, that you should be in pain? You think your body was made to be severely in pain and kind of debilitated for a week to 10 to 15 days out of the month? Because that's the other piece of it. Of course, women aren't having symptoms for 4 to 5 days when they're bleeding. Their
mhm,
symptoms are starting 10 days before their period and then they bleed for 5. And I always go, okay, that's half the month. That's
mhm.
half the month, which means it's half your cycling life, which is more than half of your total life. So when you break it down into that time frame, I've actually looked it up as well, that we get our periods for the equivalent of 10 years, over a lifetime. And so if you think of it that way, you're in pain for 10 years or more. And depending on that, the severity of the pain, how it's affecting your day to day life. And we can't forget the mental emotional side of it, that PMS picture, how that affects you, your relationships, and everything as well. So it's
Exactly.
just so much bigger than, oh, I get period symptoms. It's like, well, you get period symptoms and then you have the lead up symptoms, and it has this massive effect and a huge amount of time as well.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. It doesn't seem natural to be in pain that much of your life just for existing. I don't see why that makes any sense whatsoever. But I can also understand why somebody might resist the notion that it shouldn't be, because one, why have I been dealing with this for as long as I have if it's not necessary? And two, why doesn't everybody know this? So I
That's
get that.
true.
That's kind of disturbing. I heard the other day, and I don't know if there's any truth to this, and you would probably be the person to ask. I read somewhere, and I don't remember where, something to the effect that some women's menstrual cramps are so severe that it is the equivalent of a heart attack. And I just thought that that was very interesting to be able to explain to people men who don't get it.
Yes. I saw that same study, and you've probably also seen many of those videos where they're hooking men up to a TENS machine and giving them the cramping feeling that women experience commonly with their period.
Mhm.
I think, and don't quote me on this, I think I've seen that the most common level of period pain for women is about an 8 out of 10. And so they'll hook men up to these machines. And I mean, men, they're sitting there in this chair, kind of stoic, saying absolutely nothing, right? And I actually watched a video on this yesterday, and the woman running it said, "Could you stand up for me?" And he said, "No, there's no way I can stand up." And he was at like a 7 on 10 of the level. And she said, "But you have to go to work. You have to take care of your kids and make food and go get groceries." And, she just listed like normal life that we're all,
Mhm.
all expected to do and we have to do. And he was struggling. He was actually a policeman. He was in his uniform and everything. Um, but it does go to show how much pain women are in. And we're going through the motions, we're going to work, we're doing all of these things. And I do aesthetic medicine in my office as well. And I often ask women like, "Oh, do you have a fear of needles? Are you worried about the pain level?" And if they have kids, I basically don't ask the question because I know they're fine. And most women do have such a high pain tolerance because we're dealing with pain so often. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we're brushed off within, again, our medical system. It's kind of like, "Oh, take a Tylenol, take an Advil, you're fine."
Mhm.
But that, in a lot of cases, that isn't touching the pain level. It's beyond that. Just one over the counter kind of pill that's going to help, unfortunately. But we're resilient, as we've seen.
Yes, we are. Oh, all right. On that note, it is time for us to go to a commercial break. So we're going to be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate you. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things that maybe are accepted as normal, but don't necessarily have to be, and possible things that you can do and ask your physicians for help. We'll be right back after these messages.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne Meyer. You're watching Own Your Wellness, which you should know by now. And our special guest today is Dr. Annie Savage. Let's bring her back. Welcome back to the show.
Hello.
So before we went to commercial break, we were talking a lot about how symptoms might be common, but that doesn't make them normal. And for those people who are still sort of stuck in this idea of there should be some sort of pain related to a period, what maybe are some symptoms that people consider okay that can be eliminated or at least greatly reduced, or something that might be an indication of something else going on?
Sure. So acne is maybe one of the most common things that's brushed off. So in my intake, working with people, I'll say, do you get acne? Lots of times the answer is, yeah, but it's only with my period. So they've completely normalized that. They may get kind of one little outbreak, one side or the other, every single month, but it's probably happened since teenage years. Maybe most of their friends get it too. So it's always the thing, the symptom that's brushed off. Acne right before our period is typically a combination of things. So it can be an indication of an imbalance between our estrogen level and our progesterone level. Both of those hormones are declining and they're at their lowest when we have our period. Those low hormones is actually the trigger to get our period, to shed that lining. But when we have an imbalance between them, the estrogen level and the progesterone level together, think of them as friends. They should be balanced. They hold hands in your body. When estrogen is much higher than your progesterone, that's when we start to see these symptoms. So acne right before your period can be one of those. Other women will get acne with ovulation. So they're getting acne in the middle of their cycle. That can be related to your testosterone. So when we ovulate, we have this LH surge, and then that raises our progesterone in this big surge. Most women feel pretty good around this time. We also get a little bump in our testosterone. Testosterone for us is pretty low and stable, except around our ovulation. And that is by design, like everything in our bodies, because we're ovulating, it's telling us libido is going to be higher, vanity's higher, go on the date, go do the thing, go get pregnant. That's a message from your body. Exactly. Good times. But when that testosterone goes a bit too high, or your testosterone's already high, and then the surge comes, you can get acne at that ovulation time as well. So acne is one of the ones that people they're like, yeah, everybody gets it before their period, so it's normal. But it does not need to be. Another piece would be clots in our period blood. We are shedding a lining. So tissue, small pieces, that makes sense. That would be normal. When we have large clots, a quarter or larger, we tend to use money as our measuring when we think about that. That can indicate low progesterone. So going back to our estrogen, progesterone, those should be buddies, should be balanced. We can either have a normal progesterone with a high estrogen, but we can also have a low progesterone with a normal or a high estrogen. So it depends what symptoms are coming up. And if we do lab work, obviously we can tell exactly what's happening. But when we have this lower progesterone compared to that estrogen, we can see larger clots in our period blood. So that's another indication of some hormonal imbalance. Breast tenderness, typically it's happening right before the period as well. That's usually an elevated estrogen level there. And then pain. Pain is kind of hard to discuss because it is so subjective. And most women are dealing with probably at least moderate to severe pain. Some women will say, I get pain that's so bad that I get nauseous and I vomit. Some are laying in a fetal position. Some have to take time off work. I myself used to mix medication, which you should never do, but I used to mix Tylenol and Advil and Midol just so I could go to school. Very bad for you. So yeah, exactly. Not recommended. But the pain, the sensation that would be normal because an organ is, it is cramping. It is moving to send that lining out would be mild. It makes complete sense that you may feel that. You may feel a pressure or a discomfort, but it shouldn't be a pain. It shouldn't be debilitating. It shouldn't be knocking you over, stopping you from living your life. And that's what a lot of women are experiencing. And they either have been told it's normal by many people, practitioners, family, friends, whatever it is. And so they just accept it, unfortunately, and think, well, I'm a woman. That's what being a woman is.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. I will touch on that in a minute. Where my head was at internally, obviously. But you mentioned before that you have programs available online. So I'd love for you to speak about that so we can maybe get people some help that they very much need.
Yes, absolutely. So, what I noticed, how I got to this kind of online space is in the last 6 years working with primarily women in my office for digestion, for hormones, and for skin, is that yes, we're all different. And yes, we want to personalize parts of our medicine. However, as women, as humans, we have the same digestive system, we have the same endocrine system. It's all meant to work in the same way. Yes, of course, we want to personalize how we optimize that and make it as healthy as possible. But the overarching principles are the same. So, what I did was take everything that I do when I work with women one on one and I packaged it into 3 versions of an online program. So, they all have the same steps. It's just the level of support that would be added onto it. And the way that I work with all of these women is I include the 4 pillars of health, which is just what I've termed it, what I've made up essentially. But we start with your detoxification processes. So this is really your gut health. We start in your digestion because that is your core. Everything going into your body, everything you consume ends up within your digestive system. So if you're having symptoms of constipation, diarrhea, whether that's chronic for one or the other, or it's alternating. Bloating and distension are also big signs that something isn't quite right in the digestive system. We want to heal that first because your gut microbiome, the entire little ecosystem you've got in there, is actually acting on your hormones. So everything is so interconnected in our body that we want to start at ground zero. And for me, that is your digestive system. So pillar 1, that very first step is cleaning up your diet, healing up your digestive system so that you have perfect digestion. You should have 1 bowel movement a day at least. That's normal, well-formed, stays together when it hits the water, easy cleanup, no bloating, no distension, no heartburn. And I find that when we implement just this first step, figuring out what foods are not agreeing with your body and replacing those with foods that are going to be good and healthy for your body, that many symptoms, period symptoms included, also reduce. This is this big inflammatory reaction that our body can be under when we're carrying all these symptoms. And I find when we reduce that fire, calm that inflammation, many of the symptoms go away within digestion, but hormones as well. The second pillar is nutrition. That's where we get very personalized. I like to use food as medicine. I like to not use supplements where unnecessary because why would we use supplements if we don't need to? I never ever promote supplements. On my TikTok, it's very educational and giving you ways that we can fix these things. But I don't like to say, take this supplement for this, because I know everyone's going to go do that. They're going to go buy this supplement. And for some women, it will make a difference, but for a lot, it won't. And they'll get upset and they'll have wasted money. And if you have chronic constipation or diarrhea or bloating or all these digestive symptoms, me giving you something else for that system to deal with makes no sense. To me, you're losing your money immediately. So in the nutrition piece, that's where it does become more personalized to you, because your body may like a vegetarian diet, whereas my body doesn't. My body wants some meat. And that is, we figure that out together. Pillar 3 is your hormones. So this is when we look at any leftover symptoms, I would say, because we resolve so much in the beginning, the first 2 pillars. When we get to our hormones, we can use supplementation if necessary. We can do specialized testing if necessary. And we can still use food as nutrition in the cycles with our body, but hormone balance really comes from your liver. So your liver is really tied to your digestion. So I keep going in circles because everything's connected. But your liver is metabolizing your hormones. So hormones that are used in your body circulate through the liver. They get broken down into metabolites. Those metabolites are end products that get packaged back into your intestine and should leave your body with your solid waste and your urine. When you aren't having a bowel movement every day, when the digestion isn't working very well, your body is super, super smart and very efficient. So let's say you're constipated, you're going to have solid waste sitting in your body that should be evacuated. It's not. Your body's going to say, okay, well, it's here. I should use it again. I should do something with this because I need to, right? I'm very efficient. So in the hormone world, it will actually take that estrogen that is trying to leave and it'll reuse it. So that's another one of the ways that we develop this too high of estrogen compared to normal or low progesterone. Another way that it will get rid of these toxins or things that should be leaving your body is through your skin. So that's another way we see acne being related to digestion, because when you're constipated, your body's trying to get rid of toxins, waste. If you're not evacuating, it'll say, all right, I'll use something else. And our skin is the largest organ of elimination. So we can get acne, eczema, psoriasis related to that. So hormone balance is really a lot of liver support. So we work in that as well. And then lifestyle is pillar 4, which I feel bad saying it last because it's huge. It's so important. That is how we're dealing with our stress, what our stress levels are. Our cortisol is our stress hormone. That's a hormone that's based on the circadian rhythms. So we implement different ways that we can live within our normal natural circadian rhythm to help balance our cortisol, to reduce that overall feeling of stress. Sleep is the other piece of that, which again, hugely important. Our hormones some of them are going to be released with the circadian rhythm on a diurnal rhythm. If we're not going to bed before midnight, before the next day, we've messed all of that up. We're skewing our hormones just by not going to bed on time, just by not getting proper sleep. As well, we know sleep is for regeneration, repair. If we're not sleeping, we're not getting those aspects either. Melatonin is a hormone as well. That's our sleep hormone. So it ties into that hormone picture. And then exercise, another massive, massive piece. A big conversation for women as well, especially women who are trying to lose weight. The majority of women trying to lose weight are under eating and over exercising. That alone is skewing everything. And if you're doing that, if you're exercising a ton, you're adding more stress on your body, which in a healthy, normally balanced body, that stress is going to be acute. It's going to be okay for yourself. But if you're unbalanced and then you're doing intense exercise every single day, you are worsening that hormone imbalance. And most women will do that for a period of time and realize they're actually gaining weight and not losing weight. And of course, feel even more frustrated. So the type of exercise you're doing, the amount of exercise you're doing, when you're exercising is all very important. And we can't just throw out a blanket statement for that either. I love to implement our normal rhythm, meaning from our menstrual cycle, so that actual period, to the follicular phase of the cycle, to the ovulation, to the luteal phase. We are not robots and we are not men. Unfortunately, society is really, really great for the masculine energy and that strict schedule, Monday to Friday, this, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever that looks like. Of course, we can manage that. In some weeks, that feels great for us. We can do that. But almost no woman, I would venture to guess, would say that feels good to them every single day of the month. Because as our hormones change, we will change as well. Our energy is going to change a little bit. Our mood is going to change a little bit. Our libido will change a little bit. So learning to live within these natural cycles is beautiful. And it takes us back to that connection with nature. We are absolutely connected to nature. We have a cycle just like the sun, the moon, the tides. So it's pretty obvious. that we're connected in that way. So my overall program is really, if you wanted to distill it down into kind of one sentence, it would be that. Let's get back into our cycle with nature. Of course, we have to start at kind of more of a macro vision and more medical vision, and start in what symptoms do you have? Okay, let's figure out where they're coming from. Often it's your digestive system. So when we're healing that up first, we just get so far that everybody's really excited to continue working on these changes, because it's really a habit and a lifestyle change at the end of the day, to make it the most natural. And then we use supplementation, medication if necessary, and for short periods of time usually.
Oh, I love that. You know, something that pops into my mind about the digestive system and losing weight is a lot of people don't realize that you can lose all this weight and then they wonder why they gain it back. It's because they never really fixed the issue with their digestive system. And obviously, even if they're, you know, that some of that cravings come from that and everything else. So being able to take care of your body and make the house healthy, put the foundation down first, a solid foundation, before you start building on top of that. And I think it's really important that people understand that it's not even just, like you mentioned, people under eating and over exercising. It's not calories in, calories out. People don't get that.
And that, you know, we've all heard that was kind of old, like, fitness rhetoric that kept being repeated. Probably works for men pretty well. Like, their bodies are much more simple than us. But as many women have seen, that doesn't always work. For some women, yes, they'll be in a place where everything is balanced and it'll work. Fantastic. But in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, most of us are not balanced, and it's not necessarily through fault of our own. It's the way our world is built, the way our society is built, and what's expected of us. We're all trying to keep up. We're all in this sort of hustle culture of doing so much, providing so much. Women have the added pressure of being women, taking care of everybody, putting themselves last. So it does, for a lot of women, it feels triggering to say, oh, you should actually be doing these things to take care of yourself. And I also try to have the conversation, this really isn't your fault. You didn't do this to yourself. Of course, you didn't do it on purpose. You didn't know what was happening. And I have that conversation a lot when it comes to birth control, because so many women are on birth control or have been on it since they got their period. And they weren't ever told the side effects, what it's doing, how it's acting in their body. And then they come in and they say, okay, I want to come off, I want to get pregnant, or, you know, whatever the conversation is. And it's really sad that they don't know, and they say, oh my God, I never would have been on this had I known. And the other side of that conversation is the women who are put on that birth control for their symptoms, because it's kind of just handed out like the be all end all. It's given to us like candy, essentially. You have acne, you have bad cramps, you have an irregular period, that's fine. Go on this pill, without the big conversation. And then 10, 20 years later, women say, I tried to come off and I couldn't because my period went back to the way it was. Well, of course it did. All the pill does is cover up. It's not balancing your hormones, it's covering up your hormones. So when you pull that hormone supplementation out, you stop taking birth control, your body is then left in the same or potentially worse state than it was 10, 20 years prior. So we need to, it's the same type of treatment, it's the same thing. We still need to rebalance everything. But there is a lot of, I think, sadness surrounding it when women learn all of that, and that they could have had another option, but they didn't know at the time. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard to hear that. I love to work with women who have young kids and young daughters, because I'm like, wonderful. I can help you right now so that you can help your daughter when she hits that age of 9+, because puberty starts in our brains that early, which a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't.
Moms of young girls, I think, know, because the attitudes come out around 7, 8, 9, and they're like, this seems early, but it's really not. Our hormones do start to change that early. And then the start of our period is a few years after that. But that's how long this journey is for us. And when our period starts, when that system is maturing, when
Mm-hmm.
we put birth control in there, we're actually stopping the maturation of that entire system. So if you've been put on birth control, let's say at age 16, after you got your period at like 14, you stopped that maturation of your endocrine system until you
Mm-hmm.
pull the pill again. And then that woman who's, let's say, 26 now, she's been on it for 10 years, will say, I feel like I'm 14. And
Mm-hmm.
that it makes sense. And I
It
have a
does.
similar conversation with our women entering perimenopause when everything's starting to change again in their early mid 40s. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that conversation is, I feel crazy. I feel nuts. I'm acting awful. I feel bad for my kids, for my partner, that type of thing. And I say, well, your hormones are all going down. Like you're getting closer and closer to menopause, which is
Mm-hmm.
normal, and that's okay. The problem, or the annoying thing, is your hormones aren't going down linearly. They're going
Mm-hmm.
down kind of like this. That's where all those symptoms come from. And I like to kind of liken perimenopause to the start of our period. You have this same kind of prepubescent awfulness happening in your 40s as well. And so I know it sucks, but it's really nice
That's
for
where I'm
women
at.
to know they don't have to deal with it. That's the thing. And with perimenopause, with menopause, the same conversation happens. Well, my mom had these symptoms, so it's normal. Or every one of my friends has this, so it's normal.
Yeah.
And we don't have to make it normal. It's very common, but it's not normal. We can absolutely feel better through having our period, all those cycling years into perimenopause, and of course,
Mhm.
menopause.
Fascinating. On that note, we do need to go to one more commercial break. So we're going to be
Okay.
back in just a minute. And I said hello to everybody who's watching us live. Now it's my turn to say hello to everybody who's watching us on demand. Thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation about perimenopause and menopause because that's my interest, considering my age, and probably some of the people watching the show. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring our guest, Dr. Annie Savage, back to the show. Welcome back.
Hello.
So before we went to commercial break, we started to touch on perimenopause and menopause. And I have a question for you that's I've been dying to know the answer to. It is a time in our life when our hormones are supposed to change because that's where we are in our life. What are your thoughts about hormone replacement, like the Premarin and horse pee, Premarin and all of that?
So I would always opt for a bioidentical hormone. So those are identical to the hormones in your body. We're also more animal friendly and not impregnating horses just to get their pee or anything like that. Progesterone, when it's bioidentical, is made from wild yams. So it's much more natural. And there's a lot of misinformation between bioidentical hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and their safety levels. And when they're bioidentical, they do provide more safety to you. And there is a lot of women now, women who are discovering bioidentical hormones and starting them, who don't want to stop and who want to stay on as long as possible so that they can feel the best that they can, because we all feel best when we have more hormones. Our skin looks best when we have more hormones. That's part of aging. Unfortunately for us, as our hormones go down, that's the estrogen is adding plumpness to our skin, elasticity. So that's a piece of the pie, of course. We want to obviously look as we feel. And I think nearly everybody feels much younger than their actual chronological age number. Like everybody I know would say that. So there is safety in them. I would always just opt for bioidentical over the traditional HRT hormone replacement.
I'm so glad you said that because, and the yams, because I remember that from even on Sex and the City, they were, what's her name? Samantha Jones was eating yams because she was going through menopause. And
oh, yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't really, I mean, I knew that there are other ways, but there are people that, like my stepmom, who didn't want to take Premarin because of the cruelty to the animal. So, it's nice to know that there are different ways that you can handle these symptoms and help yourself without having to go against things that you believe in. So that's pretty amazing. Are there other things that people can do naturally that will, I mean, you mentioned for cramps, exercise, nutrition, and all of these things, but are there things that people can do when they are hitting perimenopause and menopause, or something that might be an indication something is amiss?
Yeah, it's actually the exact same process.
Okay.
No matter how old you are, we still look at your gut health, because even if people come in with their list of hormone symptoms, I then ask, okay, tell me about your digestion. And there's 99% of the time there's symptoms there. So when we have that same picture, symptoms of your digestive system, we know there's inflammation. When we lower that, everything works better. So it sounds too easy to be true. I know that, but it truly is essentially the same thing. In the perimenopause, menopause sort of age categories, we would probably be doing more liver supports because it's processing more of those hormones. Other things I didn't actually touch on yet was environmental factors. So things that we can all do just like today is start to pay attention to the products we're using, because the estrogen mimickers and estrogen disruptors, those chemicals found in our food, our environment, our makeup, our skincare, our hair care, our cleaning products, those are also having a major effect on our body. So we can't live in a bubble, so I don't want to freak anybody out, but you can use cleaner products for your body care, skincare, all of those things. And as women, unfortunately, we're marketed a product for like every inch of our body and our hair, etc. So using clean products for that is a game changer. There's a stat that says women put on 5 pounds of toxins in a year. So think of that, and then think of what that is adding to the job of your body, to the job of your liver and that inflammatory process. And we want to change that.
Mm.
EWG is the Environmental Working Group. It's in the States. EWG.org has really good resources. You can go in there. They have a tab called Skin Deep. You can put in any one of your makeup products, sunscreen, hair stuff, and it'll give you a score of 0 to 10 on how toxic that is. You can do the same thing with your cleaning products and your home products. So that's one way that we can minimize the disruption to our body.
I like that you mentioned that, because no matter what, whether or not you're having symptoms like period cramps, let's say you're a man, for example, it's still something that can affect your overall health. So it's a family thing, not just a woman thing. Not that we don't count, obviously, but it might be able to get people on board easier if they realize
Absolutely.
it for them too.
Well, and many people are very cognizant of it when they have their children or a pet, because they'll say, oh, but my toddler eats off the floor, licks, they're toddlers, they do that. And then same thing
Yes.
with your pet. Your dog's going to lick everything. So that's usually a clue for people in their homes to say, oh, I can't use something toxic now because of my son or my daughter or my new pets. But we often don't do it for ourselves, unfortunately. So that's our call today, to do that.
I love that. Well, we are almost out of time. We've got about a minute and a half left. Is there anything else that you'd love to mention, or maybe reiterate something that you haven't, or that you said before?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that we can be happy, healthy, we can be balanced, and we don't need to be in the type of pain that we've been told we should be or could be. It really is possible to feel as good as you want to in your body. And I just want every woman to know that. Men too. You don't deserve pain either. And honestly, men could do the program and just ignore the female hormone section. It would help them as well.
I love that, because it is, yeah. I mean, we have an added layer that the men don't have. So
Exactly.
I love that. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge. I know I learned a lot of stuff, so I'm ever so grateful. And I also wanted to mention too, this is your Facebook group. So for those that people watching that want to join, here you go. This is where you go to find it. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said before, it's been amazing. And I hope to have you come back on the show again in the near future, because I just think that we covered a lot of ground, but I feel like there's so much more we could talk about. So
Definitely. That would be
amazing.
great.
Well, thank you so much. And everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. We will be back again soon. So enjoy the rest of your week until then.